Actually, it's not so much about Wes, but here we go.
Alright, so a few weeks ago, I was sitting in my living room and I was thinking about how my life could have been different if I would have grown up in church. So I started making a list and I was doing a little comparison, jotting things down. My motives at the time probably weren't the best. By the time I was done, I realized that I've got a pretty good story to tell about how I found God and how I came to know Him. So before I get into that, give you a little background on me. I was born in 1988 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Lived with my mother and my sister. Moved around a lot. By the time I was in 6th grade, I think I'd been to 4 different schools. So it was kind of hard to make friends or maintain friendships. I was pretty good at making them, but just maintaining them was kind of hard, moving around a lot. And I know when I was a boy, I really didn't know what it was like to be a man. Didn't have a dad around. I know there's probably a lot of boys these days that don't know what it's like to be a man. So not having that father figure around, it was kind of hard. I still lived in a pretty stable house until I was probably about 9th grade. Started hanging out with the wrong kids. Started partying a lot, drinking. I'd go out most weekends. Sometimes during the week I'd go out. And as a teenager with no job, the only way that I could maintain that lifestyle and hanging out with my friends and drinking was to steal. A lot of people don't know that about me, but I used to steal a lot. Stole from my grandmother, my mother, the friends that I was hanging out and partying with. So it was a pretty bad situation. One day when I was at my grandmother's house, I got a phone call from a friend. Said that he wanted to throw a party at his house because his parents were gone. I was like, all right, yeah, that's cool, I'm down. I'll be over in a little bit, I've got it covered. And as I was on my way out of my grandmother's house, thought to myself, well, why not go take some more money? Got no other way to pay for it. So I went to her wallet and I ended up taking about $150 cash out. And at the time, I didn't feel bad about it. I was living for myself. I just didn't think anything about it. So I left my grandmother's house and started walking down the road. I was going to catch the bus so I could get over to my friend's house. And I started feeling something. Didn't really know what it was at the time, but I started feeling something inside me, and I didn't like it. I thought, what if what I had just done could put my grandmother in harm? What if that was the only money she had for groceries or something for the next month? What if she wasn't going to be able to pay her electricity bill? So, started feeling that inside, and as I continued to walk down the road, I saw a sign over on a building that read, Marines, we're looking for a few good men. And I started thinking, how honorable those guys were, and what I had just done was something that was pretty terrible. I didn't feel honorable at all. I felt really bad inside. So I went over to that sign and realized that it was a recruiting station. Walked inside and went and talked to one of the recruiters that was there, one of the sergeants, and told him what I had just done. And we sat down for probably about 2 hours and talked. And he told me a lot of things that I needed to hear, a lot of hard truths. Ultimately, me and him ended up walking back over to my grandmother's house. I gave her back the money. I don't think she realized that I had taken it yet, but gave her back the money and told her that I was sorry for what I'd just done, disrespecting her, and hoped that she could forgive me someday. So about 2 weeks passed, and I was in San Diego, California, going through basic training. I learned a lot about respect while I was in the Marine Corps. Ended up getting stationed in Okinawa, Japan for 4 years. Learned a lot while I was over there about being a man and what it means to be a man. Ended up meeting my wife there. Ended up getting married and having a kid shortly after. I got out of the Marine Corps in 2010, 7 years ago. And I thought life was pretty great, had a wife, had a kid, everything was going pretty well. But no matter what I did, I still felt some kind of void, something that was missing in my life. And I wouldn't find out what that was for about another 6 years. My wife would always ask me to go to church. She grew up in the church, been going to church and whatnot for all of her life. And I would always tell her no. I always thought to myself, what could God and the church do for me that that I haven't already done for myself? I've pretty much lived everything that someone could live and go through. One day, she woke up and said that she was going to try out a church here in town, New Life, and that I was more than welcome to go. For whatever reason that day, I decided, yeah, I'll go. We'll try it out. So we got here, and right off the bat, I could tell that the people here, they were genuine, they loved each other, and that they wanted to find the lost. That's their main purpose, was to find lost people and save them. So after a few weeks, ended up hearing a message. It was from, I think it was a little mini-series, it was called The Bridge. Ended up hearing a message of hope. And I don't know what it was about that message specifically, but that day I decided that I was going to commit my life to Christ and that I was going to become a lot better of a person. So I did that, and then over the next year, things in my life, they got even better. Things started happening that made my faith grow more. Ended up getting a new job, ended up buying a house, took on a little bit more responsibility here at the church, became a leader here in youth. It made my faith grow that much more. And the one thing that made me really feel like God was present in my life happened this past this past May. Went to Chicago with 2 other people from the church, get some training on the upcoming GLS. So while we were there, getting a little feedback there. So while we were there, towards the end, the lady that was leading the training read us a piece of scripture and told us to think about that piece of scripture for a little bit. And let me pull it up real quick, so I'm going to read it real quick. A piece of scripture was Ephesians 4, 1 through 4, and it says, "Therefore I, a prisoner for serving the Lord, beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. Always be humble and gentle, be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future." So she read that to us, told us to think about it, and when we were done, we were to write it down on a little postcard and go pin it up on this thing they had made. It said United. It was like a big pincushion thing. And once we were done, we were to go see her or this other lady that worked at the church to receive a little gift, a little token of thank you from one of the guys that worked there. So I go pin it up, and I go get in line, and as I'm standing there, I'm probably 2 people from reaching this lady to get my gift. And some guy walks out of the back. It was the worship leader that had been, leading worship while we were there. Walks out of the back, hands me that little gift, and then repeats word for word what I just wrote down on that card. I was awestruck. I don't know how this guy just out of nowhere knew what I wrote on that card and just knew that was the time that he was supposed to come out and tell me that. So he hands it to me. I go and sit back down in my seat, sitting there for the rest of the training just thinking about that. Thinking about how he knew. So after the training was done, I walk out into the hall, and I end up walking into him or, stumbling into him. We talked for a little bit, and he told me that God told him that he needed to tell me about my calling and my purpose. not specifically, but that I had a calling and, I had a purpose to be at this church and do something. And I'll tell you, I believe that every day, and I continue to believe it every day, especially on Wednesday nights when I come to youth and, I see young people's lives being changed. It kind of restores my hope a little bit for the future, hoping that people won't live a life like I did when I was a teenager. It's just great to see people's lives being transformed, seeing that, teenagers not living the way that I did and having a little bit more respect. So, thank you.